And there was another, now I forget, another really interesting study done around Gen Z that was talking about how they see risk as binary, like very black and white. It's either like safe or too risky, that it's like not on this spectrum. So they'll never like take the risk because they will go to, the end of the spectrum. That's just, it's too risky. I need to be safe. So there's
Right.
no, the risk.
Yeah, there's no experiment. There's less experimentation. There's less trial and error. There's less sort of like boundary stretching because the boundary is perceived as being inelastic and there to either confine or to snap.
Right. And then to your article, it's like, if the AI fears are, really strong, then it's like, what, I'm not going to go after the career I thought I was. I'm going to maybe go towards a blue collar trade that is more safe and, averse to or safe proof from, AI taking the job.
All right. Hip replacement 46 from the snowbound bunker in New York. Kyle, I'm back. And my Wi-Fi signal will hopefully hold up the entire episode this time.
It will. You'll be good. If for anybody who is listening, please also tune in because there is a beautiful white snow glow coming in from the window on Ben. People pay for lighting like that.
I don't know if that's actually true, Kyle. I think it makes me kind of look half dead. But anyway, anybody wants me to look half dead, here we go. This is good. It's bringing out my
glowing.
It's bringing out my 50-year-old skin in a very specific way. Well, Kyle, who are we talking to today?
So today we have the fabulous Matt Feniger, who is director of UTA Entertainment and Culture Marketing. He runs their trend report called Culture IQ. When I was in LA, I met with Matt. We had a very cute lunch, and Matt came to Trend Report Live and was a very good, very active participant. And in all of that, again, like we're sort of like getting through the people who I was like, these are great people. Like we should have them on the podcast. And Matt was one of them. So thank you for joining us, Matt.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, and sorry, Matt, to step in, but in the interest of disclosure, it is important to note that my wife works for UTA, and so there is no collegial involvement here, and that has nothing to do with why Matt is on the show at all. But
wait, why did I know
important to disclose? Well, I don't know. I thought you did.
No, this is news.
Yeah. My wife works in the events department, which is part of the comm structure.
Oh, okay. Well, now we're going to have to meet up when I come to New York.
Yes, indeed.
No, not with you, Ben.
Not exactly. No, there's no reason to meet me. I'll just stay here in the bunker and you can meet my wife at the office. It'll be good. Well, anyway, sorry, Matt. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Really excited to be here. Calling in from LA, so kind of 80 and sunny here, not going to lie.
Yeah,
beautiful.
I mean, I got to tell you, it's having grown up in Syracuse, and I was joking with my brother about this on the web. People here are like, "Oh my God, you have 18 inches of snow," and I'm like, I don't know, it's like Tuesday when we were growing up. It's normal,
right.
No big deal.
I think that's a larger conversation about like how I think people have gotten weather soft because of quote unquote climate change. Sure. But like I think that's very true because when I was in New York, people were like, this is how it normally used to be. Like, what are we talking about? I was like, that's true. True.
I grew up in New Jersey. I mean, this was every winter. And now it's like you never know. And then I lived in New York for 12 years and you could have a bad winter or that one winter where it just rained and never snowed. So I don't know. You never know.
Kyle, I'm really taken by this term you've just potentially coined, weather soft. Is that in the vernacular, or did we just make that? Or did you just make that up
off the dome? Maybe somebody else has used it. I haven't seen that.
I think there's something to that. I think there's probably an upcoming episode of the Trend Report or upcoming issue of the Trend Report that ought to delve into that. There, is that discussion, right? My wife is English, and so we're very attuned to this dialogue about how England in 20 years is going to be like have the climate of Barcelona, which then by extension means the climate of Barcelona is going to be like the climate of Algeria, which means the climate of Algeria is going to be like the climate of Venus.
Yes.
Anyway, what did they say, Matt? What did they say about what is the future implication of the climate for LA?
I don't want to jinx it. Will it be here? I hope. I don't know.
My theory is, and Matt, you tell me, you're more on the ground. Like, I feel like just LA is just going to become like Palm Spring runoff. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like it. Look, I don't want that to happen, but like, it just seems like that's just going to stretch. That like desertification is going to like.
If it stays that dry heat, you can still find me at the beach. That's fine.
Same.
Yeah. 120
if it's
degrees.
Humid. Awful,
you know, what's up the SPF?
Well, this is a really interesting thing. As a quick digression, I was rereading former guest of the show Patrick Coe's post last week about Gorpcore as outfitting for the apocalypse, and one of the questions that's posed in the article is one by this kind of climate philosopher who is just like, well, we could either modulate the overall temperature or we could just modulate our own internal temperatures, essentially by like wearing things to do that. And it is an interesting idea that the way to solve this problem is actually just at an individual level to dress differently.
We're all going to be in the dune suits, just like drinking our own sweat.
This is, it's funny. Sean Monahan in the slopulism, the slop populism article in the New York Times over the weekend talked about the Butlerian jihad. Well, maybe it was in his Age of Aquarius piece. Either way, Sean talked about the Butlerian jihad. So this is the second dystopian Dune reference for me in the last 12 hours. Thank you, Matt.
No problem. I mean, like the article you sent through, the one about like safety and what that means. We were working on a piece around it, and it felt very dystopian when you're on TikTok seeing all the protests in Minneapolis, and then I'm getting TikTok shop ads for great fitting gas masks, that I can shop for. And I'm like, wow, like, this Civil War is being commodified. It's, that felt very dystopian to me. Everything feels pretty dystopian.
It is. That's the thing. Like, it is. Like, it is. I think that's all there is to say, really.
But I think to that point when that article is it feels like everyone's number one value and priority is to feel safe. And that has a lot of different definitions. I work with UCLA has the Center for Scholars and Storytellers. They do like adolescent representation in media and what that means. And they do a teen values report every year. And for the second year, their number one value was to be safe. And I just think
Matt, does that, so being not familiar with the study, is that an expression of the value that they currently hold or that they aspire to, or the thing that they value the most? You know what I mean? Like, what does value actually mean in that case?
Yeah, they're given like a set of 14 kind of values that range from anything like, to have fun, to feel seen, and out of all of them, to feel safe was, ranked number one. And there was another really interesting study done around Gen Z that was talking about how they see risk as binary, like very black and white. It's either like safe or too risky, that it's like not on this spectrum. So they'll never like take the risk because they will go to, the end of the spectrum. That's just, it's too risky. I need to be safe. So there's the risk.
Yeah, there's no experiment. There's less experimentation. There's less trial and error. There's less sort of like boundary stretching because the boundary is perceived as being inelastic and there to either confine or to snap.
Right. And then to your article, it's like, if the AI fears are, really strong, then it's like, what, I'm not going to go after the career I thought I was. I'm going to maybe go towards a blue collar trade that is more safe and, you know, averse to or safe proof from, you know, AI taking my job.
Yeah. So this article is called "The Post-Schumer Consumer." It's written by Ed Cotton, who is the long-standing domo of agency brand strategy, and a friend and you know, an associate. It's in his newsletter called Provoke, which is on ecotton.substack.com, and it's an interesting thing. And I guess, you know, if we apply a generational lens to the argument, one of the things that Ed is talking about is the idea that faced with an uncertain future or a sense that, you know, the machine is going to act for you or do the job that you would have thought you'd have, that you just also kind of just give up. And we turn into the whole Wall-E spaceship where everybody's fat and happy, emphasis on fat. Do you guys get the feeling that that's actually the case? Because I'm surrounded by kids who don't demonstrate any particular fear of this future, and that's
interesting.
They're lucky kids, to be clear, but they also are the ones I have exposure to. So,
I mean, that's great to hear. And again, maybe it's like what we're fed by the media, that this is like such a huge concern of theirs, and, you know, all we hear is how nihilistic kind of Gen Z is, that nothing matters, what's the point? But the fact, you know, you're living with them and they don't feel that way, that honestly gives me more hope.
Did you? So Kyle, Matt, did you guys have you caught the Harper's article called Child's Play by Sam Criss that just dropped maybe last night? I found it in links I would G-chat you, Caitlin Dewey's newsletter, and then one of my stalwart contributors to Six sent it to me this morning too. It is my prediction for this week's Goon Cave article.
Interesting.
It's going to be this week's Goon Cave, but it's a profile at some great length of the guy who ran Nikes. What's the name of the app that Cluely, the app that helped you cheat on job interviews using AI assistance in real time? And it paints a very dark picture of quote unquote high agency young people in the San Francisco Bay Area, to the point I think of hyperbole to some degree, but it's you know, like read through a certain lens, it's a little harrowing. That being said, one of the people in it that features prominently is Donald Boat, the TikTok shitpost, or not TikTok, sorry, the Twitter shitposter who famously got Sam Altman to send him a gaming system by virtue of tweeting annoying things at him until Sam thought something was funny. Donald Boat is this kind of like nothing means anything, nihilistic provocateur who my son, who is one of these lucky kids that I described, follows closely and is really interested in. But I think he follows him more from the standpoint of like the way I looked at Big Brother magazine or Spike Jonze and Jackass and that kind of stuff when I was his age. It's on the one hand, it's nihilistic and sort of awful, and on the other hand, it's pretty obviously not real.
Right.
In the sense that like my career is real, my relationships are real, all that stuff. It's kind of it's a gag. Anyway, I don't have a question. I'm just making an observation there.
That definitely, like, I feel like, well, all of this sort of like together, like, do I think this sort of like post-Schumer consumer thing and like this sort of like outlook from young people and beyond, like, is that real? Like, I do think probably young people are more optimistic because they're not in the same spaces that we are and they're not working. They don't get it yet. I understand that. I also think it's a very specific, quote unquote, privileged thing to feel that way, because like it's the quote that, you know, I think about this quote all the time from Top Model, which I would love to talk about later. It's like, you know, when you have like, I believe her
all
name
comes back to Top Model.
All comes back. But like there is this one iconic scene, I think about this like almost every day, where the girls are on these go-sees and this one American girl is like losing her shit because she was late and she didn't go in, and she like lost the audition or the booking,
the gig.
And there's this Russian woman who is also a part of the cast, and she's like watching this girl freak out, and she goes, I want you to know that in some people's countries they have war. And it's like immediately like yeah, come back to reality and like shut the fuck up. And like I think that is like I think about that all the time, because like, you know, all these things online, whatever's happening seems so hyperbolic and whatever, but it's also like, no, like real people out there doing whatever. Like the person who is unfortunately having to, or not unfortunately, but the people who make like blue collar quote unquote living, like they're not as worried about that probably, and why should they anyway? But like those all go hand in hand with this other thing, I think, of like, you know, to that point of Donald Boat, which is fucking wild, and I can't wait to look this person up. But like I feel like we're definitely entering a space of like that person, clavicular, like there's probably like 10 others we can name, who like it's gone beyond just like creator economy and just like is full on performance art, and is like a sort of like, you're constantly streaming, like you're not even real anymore, and like this is like you're made for the clip, and like people have written about that. But like I think that is, you know, it's also a dystopia thing as well, but like I think that to that point of like why Campbell would be interested in that is because like it is a performance. And like I think definitely people who grew up on the creator economy, et cetera, like watching those people, now they're in a stage where it's like you can't turn it off. And not meaning that they're not human, but like, you know, they understand that relationship is like, you walk down the road, someone can have a camera on you, like you have to be on. Like you're that contract shifted. It's like not the paparazzi anymore catching you on an off day. It's like you are always on, and like that is a whole other thing, which I think again like speaks to risk. It speaks to you know, sort of outlook, and just like really is an indictment of everything happening. They're not making that indictment, but the fact that they're doing that is like, that speaks a lot to the things that I think we continue to talk about and that are on the items of interest for this week too.
You think there is consensus or like recognition that it is performance art? I just, you know, like
I think
all behaviors are like, you know, you can do whatever you want, that now it's like hard to know, like, even, are you being serious? Is this real? Because things you would think was like, that possibly, he can have not possibly said that. He has, and, you know, he's being truthful. So, it's, you know, it's like, how do you distinguish between that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that you know, one of the things that this Harper's article does, I would encourage everybody to read it. One of the things that the Harper's article does is it talks about Donald Boat as being a guy who declared he was going to review everything, starting with Olive Garden. And so, you know, can you just have a thought about that? Like, okay, I'm going to review everything. Clearly,
yeah.
That's quixotic and a bit stupid, but it's also sort of interesting, and it's an amazing brief in a certain respect, because it's like, okay, I'm going from Olive Garden to you know, this napkin to this 7-inch single, sorry, just to pick up shit that's on my desk. But you know, so that's obviously there is some level of performance art implicit in that whole situation. But is the rest of it understood as performance art? Is clavicular understood as performance art?
No, I mean, that's the thing, is I don't think they know. Like it's not technically, no, obviously, but I think like there will be, and I'm sure it's being literally written right now for like Hyperallergic, is like somebody casting exactly that sort of like net, and like, because it's just sure. Like, you know, especially seeing his fucking dumbass clavicular, that is his dumbass on like Adam Friedland show, and like it being like, oh, like obviously you are just a dumb teen, but it really revealed that like the dumb teenness and playing this part, and even all the characters who keep coming out of the woodwork, like they're all playing these roles in like a live action role play called life. And like there are moments where you see him with the camera off, and like, I'm sorry that I've seen some of those clips, but like it is still like, you know, it still is being this person all the time, which takes it even further than just like, you know, whoever the fuck, like Jeffree Star or whoever fucking 10, 20 years ago, 20 years ago. Wow.
Matt, I'm interested to know, do you like, and this is not to ask you to speak for UTA at all, but as you think about the business of talent and how your insight informs the way it goes, it feels like, and Kyle made the point earlier, like you are always, people now are always on, right? And so is it, do you have the thought that like, all right, the work we're doing it provides a little bit of a sort of a lane or a boundary in which we understand where the confines are or are not, so that we can suggest to people, hey, you ought to be a star on stage and screen, and you also ought to be a commercial endorser, or you also ought to be a philanthropic donor, or you also ought to be a civic, you know, service provider, or whatever the case is. I mean, is that how it sort of like the work that you do begins to manifest through the client base?
Well, I think, I mean, also the way the agency operates is very collaborative. I mean, the word is like overused, the multi-hyphenate, but people do want to do so many different things.
Right.
You're not just a creator, just an actor, just, you know, you're swimming in all these different lanes. And of course, we have experts in each of those things, those agents. So, you know, one talent will have, you know, an agent who's in our creator social media division, one who is in our maybe music crossovers that works with musicians who want to be actors. So it is very, if this is answering your question, amorphous of just like, you know, talent, they have any opportunity within this agency that they want. I do think some things that are interesting when you maybe look at people like, because I just saw that, like a Jacob Elordi, who's like not on.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, just
he wants to be a singer
like,
now.
Down. I want to be an actor, and that's it.
Interesting.
I don't know if this is a weird analogy, but it kind of reminds me of now like people wanting tech that just does one thing.
Yeah.
Like you want,
yeah, absolutely.
Going back to the iPod that just like streams your music and doesn't have distractions of notifications and text messages, social media. Like we lived so much in that era of one thing or one person who can do so many things. I wonder if like there's this slight shift more now towards this specificity.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, this reminds, I definitely think that's true. And I think that's true in a lot of, it goes to the I want to unplug and I am oversaturated, I am overwhelmed. Like, I'm trying to at least reduce the input in my world. So, like, I'm at least just going to be an actor, or I'm just going to use an iPod sort of thing. But I also think, like, it gets at something that I know you have a piece coming out about, is like this sort of algorithmic inks. Like, I think that is sort of like what it all really is couched in, is just sort of this, like, you know, it's this sort of reaction to that always onness. Maybe this is the exact opposite in a way of that performance art thing, is like I don't want to always be on. I don't want to always be this. I actually would like to like shut down the computer and myself and whatever at points. Like I want that not binary, but like I want multitudes, but I want them to stay in buckets. I don't want them all to exist simultaneously.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean,
that's interesting. Sorry, Matt, go ahead, Matt.
No, go if you.
Well, it just, the thing that I was thinking of, Kyle, as you were talking, is the, you know, the notion that we have worked in a lot of respects really hard over the last 30 years, since the dawn of the internet, in a lot of respects, to assert our ability to be more than one thing. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, not in a schizophrenic way, but in a like, I can be I don't know what, socially liberal and physically conservative or whatever stupid thing like that. Like, I can care about top model and I can also care about the stories of Chekhov. Like these things aren't mutually exclusive. And it is sort of interesting to think like, okay, the pendulum has swung so far that we've hit a point where it's like, yeah, actually, I don't really want to care about all of this stuff. Like, I don't need to know about Top Model, Chekhov, and the music of Slaughter and how the funk genre has taken over TikTok. Like, that's enough.
But will you not know if it's not in your algorithm?
Fair.
Like,
yeah.
It's easy to miss something if it's not what you're interacting with. I think like in the survey we did, it was like more than half of US Gen Zs and young millennials say they purposely like don't like or engage with a post because they don't want to affect their algorithm. So it's like, yeah, so people are like less participatory because of the algorithm.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I am doing some algorithmic reprogramming right now, and it is interesting to see, even after you send the algorithm really big signals about what you don't want to see anymore, how it insidiously wants to just stick those signals back in. It's like this kind of like, are you sure? Sure you don't want to have a drink? You sure you don't want to have another drink? Are you sure? Look at this. This is a different kind of drink. Like, are you sure you don't want to have this?
Stop sending me booze content. I think that well,
it isn't booze content, by the way, that I was trying to cut out, just to be clear.
I was like, you have one more week, Ben.
I know, I was going to say it's straight edge vegan February. I've got another 5 days and then I'm ready. I'm back on my cheese pizza and my beer.
Back on it. No, I was going to say, like, I think that it's like, it's exactly to what you were saying, Matt. Like, I think these all sort of go hand in hand with like that sort of idea of, the people are posting less. You're not seeing your friends share their personal lives. And I think that's just because, like, to that point of like, we are still engaging in all these things in life. But I do think like you're maybe taking different roles than you used to have. Like, I don't think people are over posting the way that it used to do, because like now it's just like, it's exhausting. It's whatever. You want to have a safe relationship or a healthy relationship. And I think a lot of that now means that a lot of, and I don't think this is a majority, or actually I'm probably wrong, is that like people are lurking now. Most people are lurking. I do think people still post. I think a lot of people obviously post. Like, there's more posts than ever. But that doesn't then mean that like in your personal life, your sort of cup is overflowing with like, I know about everybody's meals. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. I don't know what people are eating anymore. And I'm kind of fine with that, but that's me. I know some people miss that, but like,
I think you guys talked about on a previous episode, but like the whole 2016 trend that like showed, especially millennials, that is what we used to share. Like, it was our meal or like the most mundane update like about our life, because there was no pressure for like that post to be overly produced, to like look a certain way. It was simply about interacting like with your friends or updating them in some way. But now I feel like there's just so much more thought before you post something, of like, it can't look, I mean, I guess now that is an aesthetic for it to not look overly produced, but it's not just a casual update. And I think it's become such, to your point, social media has become so passive. And I think it really is now just a medium for entertainment, not like not really interacting with your friends. Or the way you do is, through DMing them or texting them the link to the TikTok video. And to also the article you sent, the Vanity Fair, of like, the new late night with the podcast and the creators, is because TikTok is entertainment. You're watching. I mean, I'm watching Brittany Broski's like Royal Court clips, and that's my new like late night clip. And yeah, sure, I might like it, but it has nothing to do with interaction with my friends. I am using social media, either TikTok primarily as entertainment. I think like now Instagram, I find a lot of like thought leadership and different things there.
Really quickly on that.
Yeah.
This is like, I thought it was
we've
just
hit a
me.
hot button. We've hit a
and
hot
I
button.
thought that like, well, yeah, I thought it was just me, but like I've been getting so much like input from Instagram lately. Meaning, like I don't like Instagram. I really don't spend a lot of time on there. But like every time I'm on, I find that I'm getting more information. You know what I mean? And maybe it's just like me, and it has figured me out, which it hasn't done that probably since before maybe November. But I have found a lot this year. Maybe there's been an algorithm change, maybe there's been something, but to exactly what you said, Matt, like I feel like I've been bookmarking more things on Instagram to then pull for the trend report, which historically has never happened. And that I think is maybe a response to TikTok and Twitter sort of filling in the sort of like think piece and smart, quote unquote, get your news thing. I maybe it's just doing it to me, but the fact that you said that makes me think like maybe something changed where it's giving us more of that. Does that make sense?
What's an example?
We're saving that one post. Like we like the cultural
exactly. True.
We're saving that one post, and now all we're served is
maybe.
But give us an example, Kyle, because there's a larger trend at play here too, I think. But anyway, what's an example of the instruction that you're talking about?
I mean, like, look, I'm pulling up my Instagram now, and like, sure, it's like these are friends, these are whatever, but then like it's giving me like I don't follow The Economist, but it has like an Economist post, and like it says like, are you interested in this? I'm not going to touch that. You figure that out on Instagram. But like it is giving
it's heard
me
you
a
say
lot,
that now, so
well, sure. Now it's all I'm going to get is The Economist. But like there are certain things obviously I know I'm getting because I want this, but it also I feel like my Instagram or Instagram in general has sort of gone out of its way to serve me more. It's hard to describe. Like it's not just news articles. It's sort of like think piecey style, like this sort of like the think piece meme account thing, which is a bigger thing now. And like that I think is very of the moment.
Or one I loved had a whole post talking about like I think Ogilvy did a state of fandom report. So it's in this carousel, like recapping the report, and it has stats. And I was like, oh, that's super interesting, useful for my work. I save it. It's become an information.
Yeah, I think that like it's shifting into that in a way. And maybe it's just us.
Well,
you tell us, listeners.
Look,
go ahead,
there has been, and I'm trying to think of where the source that I have been reading this in recently, but one of the ideas around the behavior of, as Ro Khanna calls them, the Epstein class of late has been to try to really control the channels of opinion making and opinion leading, right? And when, I don't know if you guys recall this, but when Elon Musk bought Twitter, somebody from the VC world, possibly Ben Thompson, said that Twitter was the most important product in the world, and which was obviously a gigantic statement at the time. But even as recently as like Caitlin Dewey wrote about it last night in Links I Would G-Chat You. Kate Lindsay wrote about it this morning in Embedded. But like the Substack Polymarket deal that was announced last week, talking about the way that you commercialize essentially news feeds. What that really is about trying to harness influence through channels that you can control. And this goes back to William Randolph Hearst and to whomever, like the newspaper barons of years past. What it feels like Instagram may be doing is going, we built influencers. We established what influencers were, but actually those influencers don't really influence anything, or not of substance, right, not of strategic importance to us as a company going forward. What actually really influences us strategically in the future is the news cycle. So we're going to get more involved in creating Instagram as a place of discourse and information as opposed to just aesthetics.
I mean, absolutely. We know, look, I think he's a fucking dumbass, but we know Zuckerberg et al. Are not dumb. And they probably also see the sort of like up and down and shifts with TikTok as a huge opportunity. I also do think in a way, like the big thing that will need to be solved in order for them to sort of like actually kind of maybe eat the lunch of TikTok, changes and problems with standing, is like they just need to be more timely. And that has been an issue for years. And I do think that that is in ways being solved, because like the fact that I'm getting things now that I want to share means I'm getting things that are within a day or two of it coming out. Because it used to be like, these are 3 weeks old. I'm like, I don't fucking care. This is a think piece from like from New York Times Magazine that is like, at this point, very old news. But now I'm getting stuff that is like super relevant and super timely, which I think is more like, that speaks to maybe an algorithmic change, because like that was not what was happening a few months ago. Maybe this is just tinfoil hat, but that's my
and
thought.
that forces, creators really have to have a different strategy for each platform. Like it prioritizes different things. It means different things to your audience. I mean, like with what the metrics that the algorithm prioritizes, like where does that true engagement happen? Like if it is in these whisper networks of these like private chats or, paywalled, Substack, then the way, I mean, I guess I'm thinking from like, a brand and performance side of like how are you measuring engagement? How are you benchmarking success? And maybe it is not those traditional metrics, and you have to try to integrate yourself into these other, ecosystems where true sociability is happening.
I mean, that like to that
the
point,
Matt Feniger zine piece who talked about like brands being invited to the dinner party is like, you are now have to be a guest in these communities, and what is your place there?
Yeah, well, I mean, ironically, you have that was a smart piece that Matt wrote, and also one weirdly that dovetails with a bit of like one of my the companies that I work with often talks about like who are the people you go to dinner with as a means to understand your worldview, your means of socialization, the value of your network, so on and so forth. And so Matt putting it in those terms was really smart. But the thing that's interesting, Matt Feniger, about what Matt Klein wrote is that has always been true. It's just that now with everybody grasping at being present everywhere to such a great degree, it has to be like that the level of etiquette has to be reasserted, or people forget that it is important.
Right. Well, I think the thing is that like it also, this has been, look, I'm sure we've all been in these rooms literally 6 years ago where we probably all said something like this, but like it finally seems like we've hit the moment where like, the brand has to be the thought leader in that way, to exactly the point of being at a literal dinner party, and like to an Instagram algorithmic change where it's prioritizing information. That then means that like, I'm making this up, but like an entertainment brand, like let's say TikTok's Instagram page cannot just be, look at this cute creator. It's going to also have to be, here are a bunch of stats about what people are doing. Because that is like, I'm actually informing you, I'm giving you information, I'm a thought leader. And that changes, again, that dynamic of brand world, again, which has been hinted at for a long time. And people love stats from brands. They love that. They feel smart. They feel like they're learning when they're not really getting shit. They're just getting sort of like advertising in the form of data. But like either way, will not be surprised if like that is a big way that people go, or that brands go, especially in this like sort of like fake smart AI economy. Like that is a good way for you to seem like you are human. In a way, ironically, is to be able to be like, here is data about you. And like, you know what I mean? Like that is a really smart move. I would not be surprised if that things go. And it seems like it is what's happening.
But I mean, I do think with like TikTok and YouTube, brands are really going down the lane of like, it is true entertainment. That's why they're all producing serialized kind of TV series, whether it's, Converse working with Amelia, I can never pronounce her last name, from Chicken Shop Date, to like do her own show, or
De Moldenberg.
Okay, I guess that was easier than I thought it was.
It looks crazy. It looks crazy for the record.
Where did she show up? She showed up in a she made a cameo in Industry.
Oh,
okay, which I thought
was funny. Yeah, it's in episode like
season behind.
Maybe episode 4 of season 4. There's a press conference and she is a reporter who gets a little FaceTime, not as herself, just as a reporter.
I mean, and now she's, I think, producing either her own series or her own movie.
It's a movie.
Yeah, so it's like it's to the point of now creators are true Hollywood.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because you, Matt, sent us the piece about, what is this guy's name?
Markiplier.
Markiplier. There we go.
Do you know who Markiplier is, Ben?
No, I do not know. I mean, okay. I have come to know who he is, but I did not know who he was prior to this box office success of his. So if somebody could please explain, it would help me so much.
I mean, he's like an OG, like era 1 YouTube creator who, like, actually, I think he was doing more comedy videos, and he still is technically in that world now. But it sort of evolved into, like, his bread and butter has been sort of like playing scary games and or ridiculous games and reacting to them live, primarily through YouTube. I can't imagine he's also not doing Twitch and other things, but he's built a huge audience, a huge, like, sort of like die-hard audience on YouTube, who probably, I would argue, are mostly millennials, maybe older, mid-Gen Z too, which is where the sort of movie comes in, is that it was a game he played, and it's very much of the style of things that was in his world and interest. And he's always sort of flirted with things like this, like doing his own sort of stuff. Because if I recall correctly, he had like a YouTube show when YouTube was doing shows, and now they're going to do them again.
So wait, so when you say games, this is like Five Nights at Freddy's type,
that sort of
scary game.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
But he was doing more like niche, like he sort of like was discovering these random games that people would tell him about or he would find. It was more left of center, and that gave him a bit of a cachet.
Yeah, and I think it's now just like a really big proof point for the industry. I mean, everyone obviously looked at like Mr. Beast and Beast Games becoming the most watched unscripted program on Amazon Prime. And now we see all these, streamers looking to creators for original IP, to be having a creators program, but to have someone like Markiplier like truly work outside the system, funded and distributed, and really have like box office success. I think it is like a really big sign of like things to come.
I wonder, well, I think there's a lot to take away from this. I think it's very fascinating, very interesting. I think the big thing, like to the point of like, he did it himself, is like, it was outside of the studio system. It was outside of whatever. And like, he probably will start working with those people, sure. But I think that sort of like, I'm doing this thing that me and my community, we know about. I'm doing this for you. That got people out. Because I do think, like, again, if we think about like 10 years ago, maybe less, maybe a little bit more, when you had this, say, like, Tyler Oakley's et al., who are like making their movies and Smosh, and like I worked on the red carpets for a lot of those movies, and like none of them did anything. They did nothing. And granted, their audiences were probably way young, and like the people who may be stuck with it, they might, like a Markiplier, like maybe they will have that. I don't think the answer is going to be, Matt, I'm very curious in your take. I don't think the takeaway is like immediately you as old YouTuber go collab with like Paramount. I think it is try to release your own thing, and like really like he positioned the movie theater, which I think this is something, a bigger story that's going on, as like a venue where you can sort of like do mass broadcast and make it a thing, which is like, we can all watch it on our YouTube thing at home, but like that's boring. Go to the theater, watch it with your friends, bring your mom. That's very different. And like it elevates everybody.
I think what's impressive to me is like, I guess, especially from the brand POV, you look at a creator's followers and you're like, okay, I'm going to get a certain level of engagement. But in this regard, you're like, he has this many followers and he was able to activate them to do a physical thing, to like go show up to watch his movie. Like that is impressive. And I think I've been saying, when you look at what's being produced and the whole like franchise ecosystem, it's really not about franchises, it's about fandoms.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
You're obviously doing that IP because you think there's an existing audience that's there, so it's a little less risky because there's a certain amount of people that will show up. And now we can look to creators of like, oh, they also have this built-in audience. Maybe there is that kind of built-in safety that a certain amount of people will show up or watch this. And this is like a new sort of like adaptation source that we can go to create new IP. I mean, I think, any drama and overcompensating on Amazon Prime, and we're going to just see more of that.
So I have there's another interesting aspect to this, which is now I know nothing about the Markiplier film other than it was very successful, and obviously credit to him and whomever was involved in that for that success. But who was in it? Was it, in other words, was it also a function of rallying not only the fan base but literally also the creative community around it, like a series of unknowns?
It was like just him. Really.
He started.
And they were like, it was like mostly like a one person I'm stuck in a spaceship thing. And there were a few other people, but it was like mostly him in the camera like this, struggling with an alien, whatever thing. So it was like it's him.
It's Blair Witch then.
Sure, kind of.
Thing.
It's a sci-fi, more like alien.
No, I understand.
Camcorder type thing.
But in terms of in terms of that sort of, super lo-fi, single point of view kind of thing.
Kind of. Sure. For all intents and purposes.
Interesting, because to me that's the interesting balance that this new climate has to strike is how do we do artist development and how do we do talent development in a way that is acknowledges the potential upside of opportunity while also acknowledging the finiteness of time and brand stewardship, I guess, as it would be the way to put it. Because I can imagine somebody like that going like, hey, be in my movie because it's going to be a big thing, and I can't do much for you now because I'm doing it on a shoestring, but when it's huge, you're going to be huge, kind of thing. And having that be a convincing argument. I also have heard and probably said that enough to people over the course of my life that you recognize that it's never a sure thing.
Right. You're exactly right. It's a funny thing because I would have thought that this was obvious. I would have thought that this was being thought about and considered 10 years ago. Granted it was, but when I was in LA, there were so many friends who work in Hollywood and whatever, who maybe were in between jobs or looking for things or whatever, all the stuff that we know about Hollywood. And a lot of them, I was like, are you looking at YouTube channels? There are many a big creator or bigger creator or emerging creator who is looking for a producer to take them to the next level, or a sort of someone who can help them develop out a whole channel strategy. These sort of things that we did in networks and we did on TV shows and all this sort of stuff, exactly to that point, Ben, of it's not just the actor, it's the whole infrastructure. And I think that is the thing that I don't think gets talked about enough. And I know this is probably happening for a lot of people, but that's going to be the big jump. It's not just oh, we got to move to wherever the fuck in Arizona that they're doing movies in now. It's not just that. It's also okay, if someone like Markiplier is their own network, you could be their whole everything. And it's that is a huge opportunity. And I don't think, not the industry, but I don't think a lot of people who are maybe creative workers are thinking about it that way. There is you could make a career just being the one person who runs a Markiplier's world and bring them to the next level.
That's true.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting though, because it also it implies in one direction the return to the classic Louis B. Mayer studio system where talent is held vertically under an umbrella, and there's less sort of diversification and market competition as a function of that. K-shaped. I think it's another example of how we're trending in a K-shaped direction. That was one thing, by the way, that Patrick Coe wrote in that Gorpcore piece about outfitting for the apocalypse. He called the environment K-shaped, which I thought was a really interesting way to think about literally the climate of the planet. England becomes Barcelona, benefit. Algeria becomes Mars or Venus, negative. But interesting. All right. Sorry for that digression.
That's very big brain.
I'm curious. I can't wait to read it. Is he saying, has Gorpcore always been apocalyptic, or it's prevalence now is horrible?
Yeah, it's a smart piece, but essentially what he's basically saying is, if you look at what graffiti writers in the early 90s in New York wore, they wore a lot of North Face and early Arc'teryx because these were garments that let them hang around outside for long periods of time, came with functional pockets where they could store stuff, provided a level of anonymity through hoods and coverings and that sort of stuff, and that they were climatically appropriate for the job to be done at that time, which is graffiti. Now the job to be done is survival, and these things are interesting analogs to how we go forward, at an existential level, just simply needing to survive into the future. So yeah, we're all graffiti artists now, or graffiti writers probably, because to convey artist is a different thing.
Yeah, I don't have any artistic ability.
Same.
All right. Well, listen, guys, Matt, we've kind of come to the end. I wonder, where can people find you? I mean, Kyle alluded to a report you've got coming out, which I'm eager to read. And just generally speaking, eager to understand a little bit more about how, UTA and the team that you work on puts these things out into the world from a thought leadership standpoint. So where do you find it? Where do you find you?
You can find me mostly on LinkedIn, and that's where we'll post the report link when it comes out. Coming out in the beginning of March. We basically put out around 3 issues a year. Shout out to my brain trust. I put it on with my 2 colleagues, Emily Anatole and Abby Bailey, who sit in our IQ department, which is our data strategy analytics.
Nice.
So yeah, you can find it there. And we just are heads down and kind of research and really developing kind of these cultural pieces of what we think is important, one, for our agency to know about, our brand clients to know about, and sort of, put a stake in the ground on certain topics.
Yeah. Well, I'm intrigued to read it. Obviously, both my newsletter and Kyle's started in similar ways in terms of being internal information that then, escaped into the wild and took on lives of their own. So it's cool to see the analog for sure, and I'm keen to check it out.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very fun.
I still love the physical copy. Great. Analog's back, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in to Hip Replacement episode number 46. We are back next week with another guest, another topic. But in the meantime, this has been Matt Feniger, and it's been Kyle. And it's been me, yes. And it's been great. So hopefully we'll catch you guys next week. Like and subscribe, all that stuff that they would say if we were on YouTube.
Which we technically are.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye.